More about the presidential race with 2016 presidential candidate and former Hewlett-Packard CEO Carly Fiorina. We should also point out she's a former panelist on The Lead. Carly, welcome back. I have to call you Ms. Fiorina now, I think, because you're a candidate, not a panelist on my show. First of all, I just want to make sure, does Donald Trump have your phone number?
No, he doesn't.
What do you make of this all? Lindsey Graham's campaign manager saying because of Trump's bombastic and ridiculous campaign, this is a quote, we aren't talking about Obama's horrible deal with Iran or Hillary Clinton's plans to continue Obama's failed national security agenda. Do you think Trump is hurting the Republican cause?
Well, I do think Donald Trump taps into an anger that I feel out there as well. People are tired of professional politicians because all they do is talk. Nothing really changes. And we have long-standing problems in this nation, whether it's sanctuary cities that have been around for 15 years or an insecure border, which has been around 25 years. On the other hand, think about what you have been talking about on your show today. We've had a terrorist attack at a military base on U.S. soil. We have hearings going on because a young woman was killed by a felon who had to be deported several times and was nevertheless lolling around in San Francisco, a sanctuary city. We have a Planned Parenthood video that is depraved in nothing else in the callous nature with which these people are talking about a unborn child and their organs. I mean, these are all huge stories, and they point to the serious issues that face this nation. And so I think eventually voters are going to say, you know what, all of this talk isn't solving a single problem, nor is the fact, by the way, that Hillary Clinton won't answer a single question and doesn't comment on any of the major issues of the day, including that Planned Parenthood video.
I want to get to abortion in a second and the sanctuary city question, but just to put a button on this about this Trump thing, it's a problem for candidates like you who are in the bottom tier. Right now you're polling in 14th place. You have to be in the top 10 to be on the stage with me for the main debate at the Reagan Library in September. How can you break through?
You know, I launched my campaign on May 4th. At that point, the majority of the American people had never heard my name. And we are continuing to gain measurable momentum. I think if you look at polls this far out in history, you would find they weren't very predictive. So, you know, at this point, everyone said Jimmy Carter couldn't win, Ronald Reagan couldn't win, Bill Clinton couldn't win, Barack Obama couldn't win. And all those polls and all those pundits were wrong. So I think the American people will sort it out.
We see on the left, huge movement by the women's groups, liberal women's groups, to support Hillary Clinton. Why aren't we seeing women's groups on the right, Republican women's groups, doing the same for you?
Well, I think there's more support out there than you might realize. But I also think it's pretty shameful that a lot of these liberal women's groups have called my candidacy offensive. Really? These are people who support women, and yet they're offended by the idea of my candidacy? That's about politics, Jake. That's not about supporting women. That's about politics and ideology, pure and simple. So I think you need to think through why all these liberal women's groups are calling my candidacy offensive and why they're supporting Hillary Clinton.
Well, I get why they call your candidacy names because they're liberal, but I'm just wondering why there aren't the Republican women's groups that I get emails from on a regular basis, why they're not behind you, but maybe I should ask them and not you. Let's turn to the question of abortion because I know you want to talk about it. One of your opponents, Governor Scott Walker, signed a law in Wisconsin this week, which would prohibit abortions after 20 weeks of a pregnancy. On Twitter, Hillary Clinton said Governor Walker signed dangerous abortion restrictions in the law in Wisconsin without exceptions for rape or incest. She called this extreme and unacceptable. Walker retweeted her and called her out of touch with most Americans. What's your position on this legislation, which does not allow exceptions for rape and incest?
Let's talk about the legislation that's sitting on the Senate floor right now, which does allow for those exceptions.
So let's
also talk about Hillary Clinton's position. Let's talk about what extreme is. It's not a life until it leaves the hospital. That's Hillary Clinton's position. It's Hillary Clinton's position that a 13-year-old girl needs her mother's permission to go to a tanning salon or get a tattoo, but not to get an abortion. It's Hillary Clinton's position that women should not be permitted to look at an ultrasound before an abortion, and yet yet people who are trying to harvest body parts can use ultrasound to make sure that those body parts are preserved so they can be sold. That, Jake, is extreme.
Do you, just to clarify, do you think there should be an exception for rape and incest?
I would really be delighted if, for once, the media would ask Hillary Clinton about the extremism of her position.
Well,
it's not a life. It's not a life until it leaves the hospital. My position is very clear. It's been clear and consistent ever since I ran for the Senate in 2010. Anyone can look it up. Yes, I support exceptions, but the majority of the American people now believe that abortion, for any reason at all, to be paid for by taxpayers after 5 months is an abomination. And this videotape, whether you're a pro-choice woman or a pro-life woman, this videotape is depraved. The casual nature with which these people are talking about fetuses and tissue and specimens. I tell you what, if a woman was looking at that ultrasound at that same stage in her pregnancy, the doctor would not be talking about fetuses or specimens or tissues. They would be saying, look at your baby's heartbeat, look at your baby's eyes, look at your baby's organs.
Carly Fiorina, thank you so much. Thank you for taking our questions. We look forward to Secretary Clinton coming on the show and taking the questions.
I hope she will.
I do as well. Thank you so much. Good to see you.